Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. The time was too short, I could only remember this much. Blind examined them in detail again and calculated. These formations construct the bodies of gods and devils, but they also break down the bodies of gods and devils. Butcher, do you understand what this means? Butcher pondered over it before saying, what you mean is that if we have divine arts practitioners line up according to the structure of the formation, we can possess the power of gods and devils. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. Making the Qi cultivators line up according to the formation structure and activating the formation would be equivalent to gaining the power of a god or devil. If such a formation was activated, how astonishing would its power be? It's a pity the formations aren't complete. Blind shook his head and said, you have drawn so much, but none of them are complete. Other than that, there's another possibility. Astonishing rays burst forth from his eyes, and he walked out from the hall. He raised his head to look at the sky and muttered, these formation structures may very well be the vital Qi circulation of those gods and devils. The formation inside every star might be their complete technique. A huge treasure vault is up there in the sky, but it's a pity that I can't go there to take a look. Qin Mu's heart pounded heavily. A star represented a technique of gods and devils? How many stars and constellations were there in the sky? Didn't this mean that there were tens of thousands of techniques of gods and devils hidden in the sky picture? The ultimate arts of the three big sacred grounds, Tao sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and Heavenly Saint cult, were all revered as techniques that could turn one into a god, Buddha, or a devil. For them to stand until now and not fall, their effects were extraordinary. Yet in the sky, there were tens of thousands of techniques that were no inferior to the three ultimate arts. Just thinking about it made him excited. Yet after the excitement, what Qin Mu felt was fear and terror. Great fear, and great terror. Hope this sky will never be dyed red by blood. Or else. His bones started shivering. When the sky of eternal peace was dyed red by blood, the sun, moon, and stars in the sky would transform into terrifying gods and devils to descend on the world. This would be the vision of doomsday, literally. Suddenly, Qin Mu sensed something and looked toward the east. He saw a huge tortoiseshell ship walking among the mountains. It flapped its serpent wings while its huge flag fluttered in the wind. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor also sensed some motion and looked toward the east. He saw a flood moving over like a huge wave upon which stood a topless, sturdy man holding a golden lance. There was also a woman in the sky with wings on her back. When they moved, wind and lightning surged, accompanied by the sound of thunder. They actually came, village chief floated up and revealed an excited expression. I'm old, but they have not aged. They are still alive? The tortoiseshell ship came next to the manor and suddenly stopped. A person with a tortoise shell on his back flew down. He belonged to the race of black tortoises. A flying serpent danced around on the huge ship whose bow trembled as a dragon head popped out. Flames and thick smoke spewed out from its nose and mouth while its eyes rotated around. It shouted loudly, Black Tortoise Xianshengwu is here to meet Human Emperor. The sturdy man controlling the huge wave lowered its speed and landed in front of the manor with a whoosh. The wave behind him then vanished. King Kuan of Kuns is here to meet Human Emperor. The woman in the sky stilled her wings, and the wind and lightning all hid under her feathers. She then landed on the ground. King Yi of Wings is here on invitation. Qin Mu immediately took out Human Emperor's seal and held it in his hand when he went forward to welcome them. Fellow lords have come from afar, and I can't appreciate it enough. Please come into the manor to chat. King Kuan, King Shi, and Xianshengwu were astonished. The black tortoiseshell ship suddenly trembled and became smaller and smaller, transforming into a majestic man with a tortoise's shell on his back and a serpent coiling around him. Human Emperor is becoming younger and younger. He was a middle-aged man in the past, he said in a soft voice. Brother Shengwu, the Human Emperor you mentioned is most likely dead. Humans are not like us, they can't live that long, King Kuan said. Xianshengwu let out a sigh of relief and smiled. That's good, that's good. That fellow looked for trouble for no reason. He was always embittered and called us to do this and that. What an annoyance. Village chief had wanted to meet his old friends, but he couldn't help freezing when he heard what they said. He seethed with anger. Suddenly, a voice came from underground. Earth Traveler Chief Tuxing. Aya. The ground trembled, and a messy head popped out in front of the manor. There was a huge bump on it, and its owner roared in anger. Which asshole refined the rock to be so hard? The head was very huge, and the bump that had swelled wasn't small either. However, the person wasn't high when he tunneled out from underground. He was only 5 foot, and his face was covered with a scraggly beard that grew in all directions. Chief of Earth Travelers, this manor was constructed by the 4 sovereigns of high heavens. They put much of their capital into its construction, Qin Mu explained right away. Those wretches again. The dwarf jumped out and landed on the floor with a thump. Even though his body was short, he was astonishingly heavy. He raised his head and said, "Country, giant, are you the human emperor? Did that haughty human emperor die already?" He didn't wait for Qin Mu to reply, unable to contain his joy. "That's good. Did he die miserably?" "He must have died miserably, right?" "Ha ha ha ha, I knew that guy would die miserably, being so haughty every day, calling us frequently to counterattack. It would have been fine if it was just once or twice, but if one stands frequently beside the river, how can the shoes not get wet? The more he played, the sooner he should have lost. But now he's already dead, right?" Qin Mu turned his head back around, but he didn't see Village Chief. Village Chief was here moments ago, so where did he run to now? "I'm Tuxing Feng of Earth Travelers, the current chief. My ancestor was Earth Lord from founding Emperor era, and our whole family was this short. You should have seen the Earth Shrine in great ruins before, right? What they worship is the ancestor of our family." The dwarf was entertaining in conversation, and he also talked fast. "Our race is very good at giving birth, thus there were Earth Lords everywhere during founding Emperor era, and so were Earth Shrines. Every mountain had the gods of our Earth Travelers. However, among our people, the smaller you are the better. Ever since founding Emperor era ended, our bloodline has gotten muddied, and we've been growing taller and taller. At my height, I can be considered a giant among Earth Travelers, and I would be despised by my ancestors. That reminds me, I have 28 brothers, but I'm the eldest. My second brother is called." Qin Mu coughed and said, "Everyone, please head inside." Suddenly, a demon wind swept over. 5 men and women with strange appearances stood on the pitch-black devil wind. Chiefs of the demon race, 5 immortal elders are here on human emperor's invitation. Qin Mu was astonished. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor went to stand beside him and said, "These 5 people are all of the demon race, and their abilities are extremely strong." Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. 5 immortals, fox, yellow, white, willow, and rat, was a saying of the mortal world. Fox Immortal was a fox, Yellow Immortal was a weasel, White Immortal was a hedgehog, Willow Immortal was a snake, and Rat Immortal was a rat. The 5 of them were the chiefs of the demon race and represented the 5 elite races among the demons. The first-generation human emperor had even saved the demons when he was saving the people of the world back in the day, so even the chiefs of the demons offered their treasures when forging the human emperor's seal together. 5 guests, please." Qin Mu invited everyone into the manor and entered the main hall to take a seat. Village Chief also came, but as everyone looked at the old man who resembled a rod, they didn't recognize him at first. Other than Village Chief, Butcher, Mute, Blind, Old Ma, Cripple, Deaf, Apothecary, and Granny Sai also sat down in their respective seats. Tuxing Feng looked at Village Chief repeatedly, finding him quite familiar, making Village Chief slightly awkward. After a moment, Hermit Qing Yu brought he and Yu over and greeted Qin Mu before greeting Village Chief with a smile. "We are late. Little Qingzi, Little Yuzi, and Little Yuzi." Tuxing Feng couldn't contain his joy and jumped up to shout, "You guys are still alive? I thought you guys were dead. Little Qingzi, your relationship with the previous human emperor was quite good. Has that scoundrel died?" Hermit Qing Yu looked slightly awkward when he pointed to Village Chief. Isn't old human emperor still around? Village chief was ashamed, wishing to hide somewhere. Tuxing Feng and the rest laughed out loud and went forward to greet him. We long recognized you, but we just wanted to tease you. Even though you frequently called us over, we missed that time we spent with you. To be able to fight with you during our years was our greatest honor. Village chief was suddenly full of tears and choked on his words. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was deeply moved. The previous generation Sword God had so many close friends, which was something he could not hope to reach. Old Rulai and Old Dao Master arrived as well, and everyone was lively again. Humans are still prospering, as expected of the race that's able to rule the land. King Kuan saw more and more human experts arriving and saw that the other races could only make claims as an equal when added together. This made him sigh ruefully in his heart. Willow Immortal looked at Qin Mu. Human Emperor took out Human Emperor's seal, so what mission do we have this time? Willow Immortal was a woman, and from her name, it would seem like she was a willow tree that had turned into a demon, but as a matter of fact, she was a green snake who had the bloodline of the green dragon turned demon. It wasn't known how long she had lived, but even though she said herself to be old, she didn't look it. Humans had at most the lifespan of 800 years, but the lifespan of other races surpassed that limit. Qin Mu could not guess how long Willow Immortal had lived. However, since most of the strong practitioners had fought along with Village Chief before, they couldn't be too young. The other immortals, White, Yellow, and Rat were all men, with Fox being the only other woman. Intercept high heavens. Qin Mu surveyed his surroundings and said, fellow senior brothers and senior sisters, I guess you have already seen the stone statues and treasures in eternal peace, right? The gods of high heavens will come forth to release natural disasters in the treasure and activate the astronomical phenomenon. Earthquakes, landslides, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and tempests will all rush through the land. It is certain that all of your clansmen will find it hard to survive through that as well. Everyone scrunched their eyebrows. On their way, they had indeed noticed numerous stone statues, and if it truly was as Qin Mu said, when the disaster burst forth, their people would be unable to avoid being wiped out as well. Before I came, I brought over a treasure that had appeared from underground. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a look, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said. He took out a Daotai sack and carefully opened it while circulating his magic power to lift up a red circular cauldron before carefully placing it on the ground. Everyone surrounded and examined it in detail. The cauldron was vermilion red in color, and there were flames spilling out from inside it. Time and time again, balls of flame would burst forth and float around the cauldron. It had an area of 6 ars, and in the center, there was an opening which was sealed tightly by a huge cover. Sealing runes were all around it. There seemed to be boundless terrifying power inside the cauldron that was continuously trembling. The hall was also trembling continuously while the glazed roof tiles on the roof were rattling in a regular pattern. The entire manor was trembling while the trees were shaking gently around it. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was extremely careful as though he was scared of activating the violent energy in the cauldron. This is Earthquake Cauldron. Tuxing Feng stood by the huge cauldron, then walked 2 rounds about it. His voice was like thunder when he said, Earthquake Cauldron contains the power of an earthquake, and if it's unleashed, tens of thousands mountains in Eternal Peace Empire will be razed to the ground. My ancestor had once forged this kind of treasure on the Emperor's order and used it to collect the energy of earthquakes everywhere. He took out a sharp horn-shaped hammer. The front of the hammer's head was flat while the back was a sharp horn. He hit Earthquake Cauldron with a loud clank. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The manor was fine, but the mountains in a radius of 300 yards from it trembled violently and shook as though they were dancing. The mountain ranges shivered while the earth churned. Mountain rocks shattered and countless trees collapsed in an instant. Hermit Qingyu was furious and snatched the hammer away. He almost got squashed to the ground by its weight, so he immediately let go while shouting furiously, 3-inch nail, are you crazy? Tuxing Feng picked up his huge hammer and held it as though it was very light. I'm extremely familiar with this kind of item, and it's fine giving it a knock. The area nearby is desolate and there's nobody. There's nobody nearby, right? Qin Mu shook his head. There's no one living nearby. However, it's best if Chief Tuxing isn't so reckless. Let me try. Black Tortoise Chief Xian Wu went forward and said solemnly, 3-inch nail, knock the earthquake cauldron. I want to see if I can suppress the shockwaves. Tuxing Feng's eyes lit up, and he smiled. Black Tortoise Shield is known as the strongest defense, so you might just be able to suppress this earthquake cauldron. All right. Let us try. Qin Mu was about to stop them when Granny Sai stretched her hand out to stop him and shook her head gently. She said in a low voice, Mua, what they respect is human Emperor's seal and not you, so they won't listen to you. Let them try. If they don't suffer, they won't fight high heavens with you. Qin Mu immediately stopped wanting to dissuade them. Imperial Preceptor, bring this cauldron out and let them try. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's magic power flooded out, and he carefully brought Earthquake Cauldron out of the hall. Everyone went after it, and Xu Shengwu with a flying serpent coiled around him stepped forward. He gave a shout, and layers of tortoiseshell runes flew out to seal the area around Earthquake Cauldron, all of them locked together. This formed a system of seals with nearly 100 layers shining with flowing light and overflowing color. Tuxing Feng raised his sharp-horned hammer and knocked heavily on Earthquake Cauldron, which resulted in a world-shaking boom as the energy inside instantly exploded out. The destructive shockwave broke through all 100 layers of Xu Shengwu's defense, and his face changed instantly. The black tortoise and the flying serpent shouted in unison as the man revealed his true body, transforming into a huge black tortoise to suppress the shockwave with all his strength. It caused him to cough up blood while his huge body was blown into the sky. Everyone's expression changed, and they each executed their strongest defensive methods to seal the rampant energy with all their strength. In a split second, numerous rumbles rang out as everyone's divine treasures were opened one after another. Their primordial spirits rose as the broken divine bridges stretched across the sky with them on top, and magic power burst forth at the same time, suppressing Earthquake Cauldron together. The energy shockwave calmed down for a moment before erupting once more, blowing all the humongous figures in all directions, smashing them into the surroundings of the manor. Everyone's face went pale white, and they stood up to look at the vermilion cauldron with disbelief. Even though the terrifying energy had been blocked by them, it had injured all of them as well. 3-inch nail, how much power of this earthquake cauldron did your hammer activate? Xu Shengwu asked loudly as he wiped away the blood on the corner of his mouth and returned to his human form. Tuxing Feng shook his head and said, it's not even 1% of Earthquake Cauldron's power. Everyone's heart sunk. The strongest people of this world were all gathered here, and they couldn't block even 1% of Earthquake Cauldron's power. If the gods of high heavens came down and activated the full power of such treasures. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor feared that Tuxing Feng would want to fool around once again and quickly put away his Earthquake Cauldron. There are still 17 treasures that are similar to this. They are hard to move, and any carelessness would activate the power within them. One of them is enough to destroy Eternal Peace Empire, so 18 is sure extravagant. King Kuan's gaze flickered as he spoke. This is no longer the matter of humans alone, but a common threat against all races that are living in this world. If the power of the 18 treasures was to burst forth, my people in the sea would also find it hard to escape. All Earth travelers underground would probably die from the tremors, Tuxing Feng said. When the tempest fills the sky, it'll be hard for my people to escape unscathed as well, King Yi echoed him. In that case, Qin Mu surveyed his surroundings and said solemnly, let us set off now and intercept high heavens. Mua, intercepting high heavens is no simple thing, so please don't go, Granny Sai said in a low voice. Qin Mu was refining spirit pills in a hurry to feed the flood dragons. Since he was leaving for a long trip, he needed to prepare some extra spirit pills. When he heard what Granny Sai said, he was stunned for a moment before smiling up at her. Granny, I'm the one who invited them, so how can I not go? Granny Sai shook her head and said, you are only on 6 Directions realm. If you don't go, they won't say anything. For this battle, high heavens will probably mobilize their full force. There's not only the 4 sovereigns of high heavens, but also other gods. If we are defeated, return to great ruins and never come out again. Qin Mu's face dimmed, but when he was about to say something, village chief's voice came from the distance. Old woman Sai, don't worry about him, let him follow. Granny saw village chief laughing with the old men and women and couldn't help becoming furious. Mua's cultivation is still low, so he'll be useless even if he goes. How is he useless? Village chief turned back to her with a smile. There must always be someone to retrieve the corpses, ain't I right, Granny? Granny Sai was slightly stunned, her words drying out. Someone had to retrieve the corpses. No matter if it was the enemy or their own people. Laughter came from far away as a bunch of old men and women laughed loudly. Village chief and his old friends had a wonderful chat. Tuxing Feng spoke about their embarrassing deeds back then, which made everyone burst out into loud laughter again and again, making their faces glow heartily. There were many things to be said between them about how they fought through life and death situations together, becoming comrades in arms. There was also a past to be reminiscent. After all, ever since village chief was crippled, his magnificent aspirations had died, turning him into an old cripple that would just lay in disabled elderly village under the rain and lightning. The traces of the human emperor faded away, and the willpower of all his comrades was also ground away. They no longer appeared in the world and no longer met one another. Now, village chief was back, and they had also reconvened because of an invitation. Even if a lot of time had passed, the reunion seemed to return them back to the time when their passion had blazed furiously. Qin Mu looked at them and saw how different all of them were. Some of them were not cheerful people, like Hermit Qin Yu, who had a face like everyone owed him money all the time. Yet even he was full of smiles now. The positions of everyone here were incomparably high. One was a chief of an underground race, some were immortals that stood high up in the world, some were great demons worshipped by their people, and another carried their people to roam freely in the sea. People of completely different personalities had all gathered together because of human emperor's seal. Let the blood in our hearts burn again, to relive our past and turn it upside down. Village chief said to everyone in high spirits. Hermit Qin Yu teared up from laughter. Burn your ass. Ain't your lifespan ending next year? Can you still burn? How can the immortals of Little Jade Capital say uncouth words? Say that in Little Jade Capital if you have the ability to. Qin Yu, you don't have many years left to burn as well, so you'll be a goner like me. The old folk laughed loud and stamped their feet. Willow Immortal's eyes narrowed into slits as she gasped for breath while saying, do you still remember? When we talked about fighting, little Qingzi would run the fastest, but not to fight, to hide. You weren't any better than me. You always rolled up into a ball. The old people laughed more, poking fun at each other. Little Qingzi even liked Fairy Shui-Chi, giving his all to chase after her. That's right, I remember it, this guy's face is super thick. Pa? When Fairy Shui-Chi died in battle that day, little Qingzi cried like a man made out of tears. No one laughed at those words, and suddenly, Hermit Qin Yu began to bawl loudly. Tuxing Feng, who had made the atmosphere incomparably awkward, scratched his messy hair. He then sighed and said, I remember Daoist Lu Feng. We had a close relationship, and he died for me, blocking a Shukil attack for me. Everyone fell silent. After a moment, they began laughing and chatting again, making the awkwardness earlier vanish. Qin Mu shook his head and executed secrets of dragon control. The flood dragons transformed into behemoths that were several miles long, and everyone boarded them. The manor was left empty. They rode the dragons toward great ruins. On the dragon's back, Butcher threw jars of wine, and the strong practitioners from the past generations hugged them to drink to their heart's content. Laughter rang from time to time, and Butcher raised his wine jar up high while laughing loudly. Drink 300 cupfuls of wine in glee. On another dragon's back, Cripple cried messily, I ain't a hero like all of you, just a small-time thief, so why am I acting a hero with you guys? Old Rulai looked at Old Ma and said in a low voice, Great Thunderclap Monastery still needs you, so go back. I'll be enough. You are Rulai, and I'm also Rulai. You know my thoughts, Old Ma said indifferently. Old Rulai was slightly stunned. If you and I don't come back, what's going to happen to Great Thunderclap Monastery? What's going to happen to Buddhism? Old Ma put his palms together, and his face held 20 kinds of enlightenment. Live up to Buddhism, and it will never let you down. Old Rulai understood his intentions immediately. Excellent. No matter if there is a Rulai or not, the Dharma is always there. It doesn't exist because of Rulai, and it won't die because of Rulai. If they will comprehend, they will become Rulai, and if they don't, they are fake monks. Qin Mu was on the back of another dragon with village chief, at whom he couldn't stop looking. In the end, he was unable to hold back. Village chief, has your divine bridge been repaired? Village chief's wrinkle-filled face revealed a smile, and he said, how can it be that easy? There are 3 steps in repairing a divine bridge, and each step is harder than the last one. The first step is Secrets of Magpie Bridge, the second step is Secrets of Mysterious Guide, and the third step is Secrets of Divine Crossing. I have cultivated the Secrets of Mysterious Guide, and that's already considered very fast. Qin Yu, has your divine bridge been repaired? Hermit Qin Yu shook his head. I'm still on Secrets of Mysterious Guide. Village chief smiled with exultation as he made fun of him. You might die trying to intercept high heavens this time. Old bastard, you only know how to curse me. Hermit Qin Yu scolded him. Village chief laughed loudly. Heavenly Devil Patriarch, this old youngster, is still hurrying here. Everyone laughed again, and the atmosphere was very joyous. The sun set in the west, and the sky gradually turned dark. In high heavens, cryptic and awkward-sounding voice came from the sky above a sacrificial altar. It was the god language, and the modulation didn't seem to be something a human was able to produce. Star Sovereign Xiao, Flower Sovereign, and Star Sovereign Yang listened respectfully. When the god's speech was over, the 3 sovereigns moved back a few steps and said respectfully in unison, as you command. Everything was calm on the sacrificial altar. The 3 sovereigns under the altar had solemn faces. After a moment, Star Sovereign Yang couldn't resist saying, are we really doing this? If we do it, not many people are going to survive in the entire Eternal Peace Empire. We have no choice but to do this, Star Sovereign Qiao said solemnly. Eternal Peace Empire is developing, and Emperor Yangfeng has already forged a divine weapon that could kill Jade Sovereign. The change of the human emperor, the change of the law, and the change of the path have angered those above. If we don't do this, we won't be able to save ourselves. Compared to those lowly life forms in the mortal world, our lives are more important. But those are countless lives, Flower Sovereign said. No need to speak further. Star Sovereign Qiao raised his hand and spoke in an inflectionless voice. We just need to do our responsibility and not question whether it's right or wrong. Wake up the gods of high heavens. There will be a battle. Star Sovereign Yang and Flower Sovereign's expressions were grim. Star Sovereign Yang came to the bugle horn beside the sacrificial altar and blew it. Instantly, a heavy and drawn-out sound spread across high heavens. Doo-doo. In high heavens, the mountains were majestic, and numerous strange beasts wandered around them. However, the most eye-catching things were still the majestic sculptures. They portrayed gods that appeared as fantastic oddities of every shape and form. At the sound of the bugle horn, the surface of the statues suddenly cracked, and the stone rapidly changed. Some of it transformed into dead skin that fell off, while some turned into flesh and blood. Suddenly, a stone statue that was half bent over and half kneeling smashed its fists on the floor while standing up. What followed was all the stone statues reviving among the mountains. They opened their eyes, and the divine light within them burst into the horizon. Star Sovereign Qiao's gaze was like lightning as he swept the surroundings before shouting, "Receiving official, lay the bridge." In the sky above high heavens, a dazzling golden bridge appeared, and the receiving god official stood upright there, turning a golden-colored compass in front of him which grew brighter and brighter. Instantly, a beam of light shot out, transforming into a golden bridge which penetrated through the barrier between high heavens and the lower world. The corners of Star Sovereign Qiao's eyes twitched, and he suddenly gritted his teeth. All gods listen to my command, descend to the world of mortals. The gods rose and transformed into beams of light, following the bridge of light out of high heavens. Instantly, above West Earth, radiant stars streaked across the sky. It was nighttime, and there were 18 shooting stars that dragged their long trails as they broke through the sky and headed toward the east. At night in great ruins, heavy snow was falling from the sky as the young patriarch and elder of discipline sat in a ruin around a bonfire which lit up their surroundings. "It's snowing." Elder of discipline raised his head and saw snowflakes floating down from the darkness. "The winter this year seems to be especially long." The young patriarch used a stick to poke at the firewood, making the fire burn more furiously. As the bonfire crackled, sparks floated up along with the smoke. "It's still considered all right. New Year's should already be over, right?" The young patriarch smiled. "After it, the weather slowly becomes warmer." At that moment, a chuckle suddenly sounded out. "Make the fire bigger. I would also like to warm myself." The two looked back and saw a man wearing a conical bamboo hat walking out from the darkness. He only had 9 fingers, and vapor condensed into mist as he breathed out. "Dao friend Ling Jing." The young patriarch immediately got up to greet him. Daoist Ling Jing returned his greeting and took off his bamboo hat before stretching his hands to the fire to keep warm. His gaze flickered. Heavenly Devil Dao friend is also answering the call of human emperor and going forward to meet him. The young patriarch shook his head. "I'm not meeting with them. I already know what happened, so I'm just waiting here. Even if they don't arrive in time, I can intercept the gods of high heavens first." "Dao friend Ling Jing, what about you?" Daoist Ling Jing smiled. "I hesitated for a long time, since I'm not on good terms with many people, like Old Sword God. Look at this finger, it was chopped off by him. But after I thought through it, it all comes down to the promise the ancestor of the human race made. If I don't uphold it, I would fail as a human, so I decided to go and meet them." "In that case, there's no need for you to go," the young patriarch said with a smile. "You can just wait here. If they don't arrive on time, we can drag it out together." Daoist Ling Jing nodded, and the 3 of them didn't speak again. When midnight came, the snow stopped, and trails of magnificent starlight appeared in the sky, heading east from the west. The young patriarch smiled at Elder of Discipline. "Bring Dao friend Ling Jing and my ashes back, if you can still find our corpses." Elder of Discipline bowed. "Farewell to the both of you." When he raised his head, the young patriarch and Daoist Ling Jing had vanished, and in the sky, there were 2 more trails of light. They were rising diagonally to intercept the 18 shooting stars. This video will end here.